Hello, I'm Susan Regan, your host for Connecticut Valley Views, and today my esteemed guest is Senator John A. Kissel. He is the Chief Deputy Republican Leader. Senator Kissel has been serving the District 7 North Central Connecticut for 16 terms. That's quite a venture on your part. Obviously, you're very popular in your district, John.
Well, it's just I'm tremendously honored to this day to be able to represent the good folks of North Central Connecticut in the state Senate.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, we're very appreciative of you taking your time today and to provide our viewers with the objective view and commentary of what is in store for Connecticut citizens for 2024. So we know your dedicated efforts in general for District 7. But you also serve on a number of committees, and if you could give us an overview of that and what they are responsible for.
Well, I'd like to start off with saying Happy New Year to all your viewers and just thank you and Bill, Susan, for all the hard work that you do in promoting different issues and getting the word out regarding both sides of everything that comes down the pike here in Connecticut. So thank you all so much. I serve as the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee. I have been that individual, had that role for several terms now. I would say in excess, close to 20 years. And that's sort of the shadow to the chairs of the Judiciary Committee. And it's very important up in our neck of the woods because one of the things that we oversee above and beyond the judicial branch is the Department of Corrections. So we monitor what goes on there. And I have really good rapport with Commissioner Kairos and Judge Bizzuto, who's the chief court administrator. So that has proved very helpful for my constituents over the years. Every other year, there's one committee that actually allows the minority party to co-chair. That's the Regulations Review Committee. And so this is my term to co-chair that. So I'm actually chair of that. And it was recently in the news a little bit because we had to pass judgment on electric vehicle regulations, and ultimately the administration and the governor's office withdrew those regulations. So we're in a holding pattern on that as to what the majority party may or may not do in the coming session. And I also serve on the General Law Committee, which just as a regular rank and file member, but I love it. In times past, I used to co-chair it. And it's got a very bland name, General Law, but it oversees pharmaceutical industry, pharmacists, occupational licensing, the entire alcohol industry in Connecticut. And essentially, we have oversight over the Department of Consumer Protection. So it's very interesting. And we have a lot of business interests. And one of the reasons, Susan, I really love that committee is it's not really partisan. When it comes to looking out for small business people in Connecticut, it tends to be very bipartisan and very practical, our approach to laws.
With regard to, I know that you spent a lot of time on efforts for veterans and particularly for older people, our senior folks in Connecticut. Is there something specific that you are supporting or speaking more about with regard to veterans and seniors? What do you see the most critical things that we can do for that segment of our society?
Well, first of all, I want to compliment you and Bill for your efforts for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and utilizing horses and equestrian skill sets to get their focus off of certain mental health issues, and it's been really very helpful and productive. And so great compliments to you there. And, you know, it's never a chore for me to put forward legislation and try to make that more of a possibility for more veterans in Connecticut. We try to continue with our awareness. And in the last legislative session, I was actually very successful. One of my towns is Summers, and there were some folks there, and they were getting a disproportionate amount of veterans inquiries. And it's one of those things where they were doing such a great job with their town resources that folks from surrounding towns were going to them. So we passed some legislation to try to even it out more and encourage other municipalities to step up and serve their veterans locally. There was some legislation that had charged them to do that, but there was no teeth in it really. So we really tried to beef that up so that more veterans would have more local access to what is available through the state.
What I might ask you is, this is kind of an internal how does it work process. And this is, you serve on different committees. Is it something that you raise your hand for and then somebody has to approve it? Does someone nominate you? Are you requested to serve on a committee? How does that operate within the legislature?
Well, as much as we have a constitutional republic here in the United States, it is dictated in a way by our caucus leaders. So the Speaker of the House makes all his, it happens to be Matt Ritter right now from Hartford. As Speaker, he picks who in the majority party of the House serves on the various committees, not only chairs the committees, but serves on the committees. And he can do it at will. If someone gets in trouble, let's say they unfortunately run into a scrape with the law, he has the unilateral authority to withdraw them off that committee and pending a further investigation. Same with myself. Kevin Kelly is the Senate Republican Minority Leader, and he makes decisions. It's very affable. I mean, if you've been there a number of years and you've shown an interest in a particular area, he tries to accommodate everyone, but sometimes there's only so many slots and maybe more interest than not. And so he tries to balance everyone and just make assignments of the committee membership as best he can.
Now, further to operations, I guess, within the legislature, is there anything that we can provide to our viewers today that they may or may not be aware of? I mean, generally speaking, they know the legislature meets and one person may present a bill, which I will ask you about shortly, and a proposed bill they'd like to. Tell us how that process works. If someone comes on, makes a presentation, it's considered, maybe it never leaves the floor, or whatever expression you use. Just give us a sense of that process.
Sure, Susan. So it can seem complicated, but it's actually very straightforward. And I want your viewers to really know that their participation as a participatory government and their voice and their input is really very helpful and actually makes a big difference. And it's like if they just run off a form email or a form letter, that's going to have a certain impact, especially if it comes from folks within a particular constituency. But personalized outreach just can't be topped. And there's various ways to do this. First of all, if folks want to know what's pending right now, they can go to the legislature's website, and on there are links to all the various committees. But just in a broad brush view, we serve for 2-year terms, whether you're a state senator or state representative. It's not like Washington. Everybody is 2-year cycles, and we're coming up to our reelection cycle right now in this presidential election year. There's a long session and a short session. The first year of the cycle, which would be coming up a year from now, is the long session, January to June. Typically, it's the first Wednesday of January to the first Wednesday of June. We're now in 2024 in the short session. It's the second year of my session right now. And that's February to May, again, Wednesday to Wednesday. And so it's reduced by at least a month that way as well. So we'll jump in there in February. We're supposed to be limited to just budgetary issues, but it's open for debate on anything that the chairs decide to raise within their committees. And they're pretty liberal as far as not only policies in Connecticut being so top heavy with Democrats, but also, the little pun in there, but also pretty generous in allowing bills to be raised. The thing that constituents need to understand is myself and other legislators can raise or petition to raise bills on our own in the long session. In the short session, we're not allowed. We can sort of beg the chairs to raise a bill by their committee, but no individual legislator can say, I'm putting forward this bill. They all have to be raised by the committee themselves. And so that gives the chairs a little broader leeway to weed out things they don't want to deal with. They can certainly just, I don't want to say hide behind the rules, but just say, well, you know, the committee decided not to do it, not we don't want to do your bill. So that's done to try to limit how much we tackle. But again, we have a history of tackling all sorts of bills in the short session. Reach out to your legislator right now if you have a bill idea and see if they can put it before the chairs of that committee and push for it. And typically, if I see a bill that I'm really excited about, I'll do whatever I can to at least get a public hearing. And a lot of times that's no easy trick just to do on its own. And then it's just, doing the best you can to push it through. And if you can get ahead of steam and get some interest by people on the committee of cognizance, that's real good. But sometimes with great ideas, I run into headwinds, even from people in my own party. And those are difficult to overcome, but it never hurts to get the issues out. And a lot of times I've seen things where it's time just wasn't right. And I've put forward proposals, and then all of a sudden, 2 years down the road, the Democrats have embraced it, put it as part of a package, and lo and behold, it's the law of the land. So always try. It's a very integrative process. And again, I love to hear from my constituents, and there's just a ton of bills that I can point to constituent ideas that have become law.
Okay. All right. Let me hark back to something you mentioned. You're on one of the committees, Connecticut Consumer Complaint Department. Am I correct in saying that?
Consumer protection.
Consumer protection. All right. So this might be a common layman individual or business person. What kinds of complaints do you get? I mean, are they with regard to maybe a law or regulation, an issue they've had with a local business? Take us through that situation in case someone says, I don't know if I speak to my legislator if anything will happen about this, but I was dealing with a so-and-so company and I feel that I got cheated.
Yeah, sure. So again, one of the committees I serve on is general law, which has cognizance over the Department of Consumer Protection, which is their major umbrella is various occupations as well as just people's interaction with various businesses. Sort of two different things here. Part of our job as legislators is to put forward bill proposals, serve in the legislature itself, and sit on various committees that oversee various government actions. But one of the other very important hats that we wear, and I think it's one that Republican or Democrat, it depends on the legislature, him or herself, how much interest they have in it. And I'm very blessed to have Kate McAvoy, my legislative aide. She is just a dogged advocate for my constituents and really we follow up on everything. And it's our role in interacting with the state agencies. It's not proposing bills, but it's like, someone had a problem with their local CVS. Well, CVS is governed by the Department of Consumer Protection. It is reaching out to the liaison of the governing entity, the Department of Consumer Protection. We have liaisons, and over the years, you build up personal relationships with them, good working relationships. Your word is your bond. They understand you're not playing politics. You just want to try to figure out what the issue is for your constituent, and hopefully you get an answer back in a rather short period of time, or at least let your constituent know what the process is. And even if it takes a couple months, people just want to know, is somebody watching this? Is somebody following through with this? As long as I get a fair shake, that's what I want. And I will pride ourselves and give Kate the majority of credit that we really do a great job on that. When I go out and it's not all me, but I think that's one of the most important things a legislator can do. It's great to get headlines and pass bills, but that's not the be all and end all. People want to have a relationship with their government where it serves them. They're not just working for it. And a lot of times, and it's unfortunate that a senator or a representative is helpful in this, but we just help cut through the red tape and we get things to the top of the pile, and we just make sure things don't get lost in the cracks. And we make sure that people are treated with respect in the process. And so that's how we would do it. We would first assess the question. There are some things we can't get involved with. We can't get involved in divorces or pending court matters or criminal matters. Anybody can imagine why. If legislators were in there messing with the court system, the world would be upside down and the majority party would run amok. And not at their fault. It just, we don't belong in that area. But with working with the administration and all the various departments, whether it's we get a lot of DMV calls and things like that, DOT working on roads. You had mentioned business problems, looking to see if there's different funding mechanisms for a great idea. We're happy to look into all of that. And that's that's part of my job, and I consider it important.
I think that's why you've been in your position for so long. You truly do. You're right about Kate and yourself. And many times people, I've heard them on radio interviews and so forth, they call in and they rant. I've tried to get hold of my legislator. I've tried to get hold of my representative. I don't get a response back. But you, Senator Kissel, have been very good. I can speak from a personal basis. You are very responsive to everything. So we're delighted to have you. All right, let me go back to.
You're very, very kind. Thank you.
Well, you're very personable, and I think when they talk about politics, they say the way to win is to be likable. You should have priorities when it comes to specific things that you work on, and that you things that are trying to be accomplished on your side of the aisle, and hopefully work across the aisle. What do you see? Let's talk about a kind of a situation very quickly with the electric vehicle thing. There have been conversations where they say, well, Governor Lamont just put that aside because he realized it was not going to be a very popular thing to do now, to be forcing people to have to change over to all electric vehicles by, I believe it's 2035. And was there an agreement that that was not good timing? Was that Governor Lamont's decision because he didn't think it was good for his party, particularly in a presidential election year? Or was it because of the efforts that were made by the Republican Party to squash the whole thing?
Well, it was a combination of a couple of things, Susan. The Republicans came out on the issue very early on and made very clear statements as to our policy, which I totally agree with. I don't think it's the role of the government to dictate what you can or cannot buy. I believe in the free marketplace. Obviously, there's some exceptions to that where the government should step in for quality control or if there's an emergency, but there's no emergency right now regarding this. People say, well, the horse and buggy turned to the Model T. Yeah, because consumers wanted that, not because the government dictated that. The governor, I believe, with his advisors, just counted heads on the Regulations Review Committee. It is evenly balanced, 7-7. But he had also determined that he had lost two key Democratic state senators, Kathy Austin and Joan Hartley. And so that made it 9-5. He was going to lose votes on those two regulations regarding electric vehicles. So the administration at the last moment pulled the regulations, so there would be no vote. They had a press conference later that day where the Democrats united. Matt Ritter and Martin Looney, the president of the Senate and Speaker of the House, the other way, said we're gonna reassess this and bring it before the legislature as a whole. And very briefly, that's where it belongs. It shouldn't go through a small committee. It should be the legislature as a whole if they're going to dictate what people do. And there's a host of practical ramifications. I don't even have a garage with my house, beautiful old house, but I don't have a garage, so it'd be tough to charge a car. So we have a lot of those fundamentals. If they want to push something through as a whole, they have the votes to do it. But I would credit the Republicans for putting up really important considerations. It was enough to win over two key Democratic state senators, and that was enough to stop it from going through the regs review process. But I wouldn't say the governor has given up. I would say let's just wait and see what rolls out by the majority party. I don't think it's behind us at all. I think it's going to come back.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. Do you think so? You think it'll come up in this first session? Well, you don't know, but you do feel that it could get rolled into something else along. I mean, is that possible that they would put in something that might be popular with the Republicans? And then
they do it all the time. They do it all the time. The old poison pill trick. Yeah, they definitely put bills together, which we argue till we're blue in the face, that we love and with something that we hate. And it makes it very difficult to vote no. But on this one, no matter what is sugarcoating it, I'm going to vote no, because I just don't think it's
Right,
necessarily good for the environment. The energy is going to come from somewhere. Just because it's electricity doesn't mean it magically appears out of outer
right,
space.
right.
But above and beyond that, it's an important bill for people that advocate for this issue, and so it's one of those sort of scorecard bills for
Yes,
environmentalists. And
yes,
so I think the governor and Katie Dykes, the commissioner of Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, have pulled it so that they live to fight another day. And so
sure.
I think it's coming up this session. How it's dressed up for consumption, I don't know. They are looking at Arizona or Colorado as models where it'll be reviewed in 5 years. But I still think it's the wrong path to go. And just to let your viewers know, the other alternative is not nothing at all. It's the federal program, which over 30 states are following, which is just looser parameters. It's still moving in that direction, but allows for consumer choice. What we're debating over is, do we follow California? And I just don't view Sacramento and California as a good role model for state policy.
Sure, sure. All right. With regard to, let's call it the lockup issue, is there anything going on in Connecticut where inmates have been assigned, or how we want to say, they have 3 years, let's say, for committing a crime? Do you see any challenges here with allowing people to get away and suddenly their charges are dropped, or they're given a pass, or they're given an opportunity to appeal and being let out a lot less? Is that any part of the issue that we have in Connecticut?
Sure, that was a real hot button issue in the last legislative session, and I will credit Senator Heather Summers for discovering that the Board of Pardons and Paroles here in Connecticut had on its own formulated a policy where they were releasing folks that had committed very serious felonies, including murder and even aggravated murder, in much quicker time than they were sentenced to. So imagine if someone killed 3 people in cold blood, they were sentenced to 50 years, and the Board of Pardons and Paroles were discovered to lop off 20 years of that sentence on its own without any legislative overview.
Right.
So we really, Heather reached out to me as ranking on judiciary. Again, the committee assignments are very helpful in championing certain areas. We brought that issue to the fore. We said that it is bad public policy. It would need to go through us as the legislature, not some small little group like the Board of Pardons and Paroles out of Waterbury that has about 20 members. And it was done almost unilaterally by the chair of that. Governor Lamont, to his credit, asked that chair to step down. He still is on the board, but not the chairman. He put in a new chairperson, and to her credit, she came up with new policies that I believe are very good policies. But I think the Democrats, who weren't happy with our push to try to rein in what we felt was excess and no justice in those instances, may put forward a proposal to go back to that old style of addressing these very serious felons. So a lot of what I do is playing defense, and it's almost like being a hockey goalie, where you just don't want them to score bad goals. And so I'm going to keep vigilant on that as well.
Well, we are coming around the corner, but I did want to ask you, you're familiar with the Let Parents Parent bill
Yes.
that was initiated by the Family Institute of Connecticut, and it is for, basically speaking, more authority to remain with parents when it comes to curriculum in schools, anything to do about transgendering without notice to them, anything that's going on in school for which perhaps their children have contacted a nurse or someone at the school and they want to perhaps participate in a pill blocking thing. This is going to be presented at this session in February. Do you see hope for it possibly getting support?
Well, here's the thing. I've been in touch with Peter Wolfgang in the past, and I appreciate he's the head executive director of the Family Institute of Connecticut, and they bring forward really legitimate and interesting ideas, but being a very moderate in some respects, liberal in other respects, governed state. A lot of times their proposals have a difficult time even getting a public hearing. One of the things that I've always been sympathetic to was just parental notification of of a minor wanting an abortion. Just the notification, not anything more than that. And it's been brutal just to even get a public hearing on that issue. In the Let Parents Be Parents, my review showed a long list of concepts regarding what may be put forward to a youngster, a child, a minor in school, that the proposal wants the parents to be notified so that they can let parents be parents, make decisions. I was just at an event last evening where that was completely echoed regarding vaccination for a variety of things. This is before COVID. We had fights over if a parent didn't want their child vaccinated for whatever reason, that they should have that right. And that what came push to shove, and the majority party pushed through a bill that said they'll withdraw education. So the first question is in this short session is, can the Family Institute get someone to push that bill forward? And I'm not aware, but I'm sure they're hard at work doing that. Some of the more conservative legislators might feel very comfortable. And I only use that characterization because it is somewhat controversial regarding transgender and a lot of these things that tend to be hot button issues in the legislature. But that being the case, I'd like to believe that some of the concepts in that list of items can be brought forward for a public hearing. I think it probably would go through the Education Committee, but I haven't done that analysis, and would have to be reduced to something that was put through the Legislative Commissioner's office, so it's in proper proposed legislation form. But I think they have every bit of chance as any other proposal out there. And I'm sure they're, again, looking for individuals to put it forward. And should they do so, it'll be a real interesting public hearing as to where it goes.
Well, Senator Kissel, it has been very informative, as you usually always are. Personally and on our program, we're very grateful for your time. Any contact information you'd like to provide for people to follow you further? Yeah,
they can Google my name, State Senator John Kissel. They'll find links to ConnecticutGeneralAssembly.cdt.gov, john.a.kissel. But my phone number.
You're not hiding.
Yeah, no, I'm not hiding at all. Every mailer I put out. But again, it's real easy. If you just Google my name, it's one of the first that pops up. Okay. My aide is Kate McAvoy. She's very friendly. We try to get back to everybody within 24 hours. Okay. So, and call me at home if you have to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Senator Kissel, for your time and your candidness. We very much appreciate it. I want to remind everyone you can always see this segment and any of our Connecticut Valley View segment on ConnecticutCTValleyViews.com. This is Susan Regan. Thanking you for viewing us today.